In the heart of East Africa, a drama of imperial ambition and colonial struggle unfolded over the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1895, the East Africa Protectorate was established. This marked Britain's formal entry into what is now Kenya. The Suez Canal, opened in 1869, made East Africa valuable. Control meant safeguarding Britain's trade route to India. The Protectorate faced resistance from indigenous communities. They fiercely protected their traditions and sovereignty. The dawn of the 20th century saw a new chapter unfold in the colonial saga of Kenya. This was the construction of the Uganda Railway. This ambitious project, stretching from the port of Mombasa to the shores of Lake Victoria, was hailed as a marvel of engineering. It would forever alter the landscape and demographics of East Africa. The railway, however, came at a cost. Thousands of Indian labourers, known as coolies, were brought to Kenya to work on its construction. They endured harsh conditions and faced the perils of disease and wild animals. Many perished far from their homeland. The impact of the railway extended far beyond its physical presence. It facilitated the movement of goods and people, but it also opened up the interior of Kenya to European settlement. This influx of settlers would have profound consequences for the indigenous populations, setting the stage for future conflicts over land and resources. The year 1920 marked a turning point in Kenya's colonial history. The East Africa Protectorate was formally transitioned into a crown colony. This seemingly administrative change had profound implications for the territory and its people. It signified a shift towards greater control from London and paved the way for the entrenchment of settler dominance. White settlers, primarily of British origin, were drawn to Kenya's fertile highlands. They saw an opportunity to build a new life in this land of seemingly boundless potential. Large tracts of land were alienated from indigenous communities, often through dubious means, to make way for sprawling plantations and farms. This dispossession of land had a devastating impact on indigenous communities. It disrupted their traditional way of life, forcing many into wage labour on European-owned estates. Moreover, a system of racial segregation was imposed, relegating Africans to second-class status in their own land. Resentment simmered, laying the groundwork for future unrest. A cry for freedom. Seeds of Kenyan nationalism. As the 20th century progressed, a new spirit of resistance began to emerge in Kenya. The seeds of Kenyan nationalism were sown. A growing number of Africans, particularly those who had received some form of Western education, began to question the legitimacy of colonial rule. Early nationalist movements, often led by figures like Harry Thuku and Jomo Kenyatta, emerged. They demanded greater rights for Africans, including access to land, education and political representation. Their voices resonated with a population increasingly disillusioned by the inequalities of colonial rule. These early nationalist movements faced stiff opposition from the colonial authorities. Their leaders were often subjected to harassment, imprisonment and exile. However, the crackdown only served to further ignite the flames of resistance. The struggle for independence was gathering momentum. The Mau Mau uprising, a struggle for land and liberty. The simmering tensions in Kenya erupted in the early 1950s with the Mau Mau uprising. This armed rebellion by the Kikuyu people was a desperate struggle for land and liberty. It became a defining moment in Kenya's fight for independence. The Mau Mau fighters launched guerrilla attacks against colonial targets. They sought to reclaim their ancestral lands. The British response was swift and brutal. Thousands of Kikuyu were detained in overcrowded camps. The Mau Mau uprising was a turning point in the struggle for Kenyan independence. It exposed the brutality of colonial rule and galvanized international support. Although suppressed, it altered the political landscape. The British government could no longer ignore the demands for independence. Uhuru, the dawn of independence, and the legacy of empire. The winds of change were sweeping across Africa in the late 1950s and early 1960s. The era of European colonialism was drawing to a close. Kenya, too, was on the cusp of a new dawn. After years of struggle, the country achieved independence on December 12, 1963. Jomo Kenyatta became Kenya's first Prime Minister. The country erupted in celebration as the Kenyan flag was raised. The word uhuru, meaning freedom in Swahili, echoed across the land. The legacy of British rule in Kenya is complex and contested. The colonial era brought significant changes, from cash crops to infrastructure. However, it also left a legacy of land dispossession and social inequality. The scars of colonialism run deep, and healing is ongoing. Nevertheless, Kenya has emerged as a vibrant democracy and economic power. The spirit of Uhuru continues to inspire generations of Kenyans. Like and subscribe to Emgotvhistory for more stories.